And good morning to those of you in Australia, New Zealand. A good afternoon to those on the Canada-US West Coast. And good evening to those on the East Coast of Canada-US. And we have a few folks over in the UK, so it's evening to you. Hello, my name is Michael Haynes, SME Business Growth Specialist for B2B, accounting, technology, and professional service firms. Welcome to another episode of Breaking Thru in B2B. It is my pleasure that today having a repeat guest, Stu Heinecke, who's the godfather, the guru of contact marketing, and the author of the book, How to Get a Meeting with Anyone, for which he has just released an updated version. Stu, how are you? Fantastic for you to have you on here again. Really looking forward to this conversation. Congratulations on the second book. Can you show the folks a copy of the book?
I can, except that StreamYard doesn't like the color yellow, so everything but the yellow things.
Okay, that's all right. So this book is a copy of the book. Awesome. Copy of the book, How to Get a Meeting with Anyone. This is your updated version. I have the original version, the first version. Fantastic, great insights there. So really looking forward to getting into it. Folks, if you've got questions, put those in the comments and I will do my best to try to answer them using StreamYard. And so some of the questions come through, some of them don't. If not, put them through. And any question I don't answer, either myself or Stu will definitely respond and I will be reposting this. So Stu, let's get into it, but let's start from first principles because you know I'm an avid user of your content, but many folks are not familiar. So let's start off with, first of all, your whole premise of your book and all the brilliance in it is based on the premise of contact marketing, not content marketing, folks, contact marketing. Stu, can you define for our viewers live on the recording, what is contact marketing?
Yeah, sure. Well, I have to say, to write the book, I didn't just write about what I do. I'm a cartoonist. I'm one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists, and so that's very useful. It's like an unfair advantage, especially in this. But I interviewed a lot of the top sales thought leaders and asked them, when you absolutely have to reach someone who's just very important, someone who can change the scale of everything, but they're going to be hard to reach. How are you doing it? What are you using to break through? And they shared all kinds of crazy stories, really not only crazy about in terms of what they did, but also the kinds of results that they generated. And so I kept asking them, by the way, what is this, this thing that we're doing, me with my cartoons and you with swords and insights and all these different things. But what is this called? Is there a name for this? And everyone said, I don't know. I don't know what it's called. So I had to call it something in the book. I called it contact marketing, and it's stuck. So, when I think about what the definition of it is, it's really it was kind of like what I've just described. These are unique approach campaigns or outreach campaigns that use. I would say this isn't a very technical description of it, but they use very audacious, clever means to reach out to someone of great importance, someone who's going to change your scale, and do it at a very, very high rate of success. And so a lot of the creativity that goes into it is, I would say, I don't know, I've said it before, I don't know if it's really true or true for everybody, but that it's sort of agency level creativity that goes into these campaigns. But I don't know that that's actually it. It's more like human, very earnest efforts to put your own creativity into it, goes into it, and it's evident on the other end. And in the end, what we're doing is creating human to human connections. So that's really a very wordy version of a definition of contact marketing.
Great explanation. And in your book, in the second version of the updated version of the book, which I am reading, but on Kindle, unfortunately, until July 4th, you gave the definition and you talked about how with contact marketing, it is about identifying those key small number of people that can be quite influential in changing the trajectory of your business. I think that is so important. A lot of the listeners here that I'm dealing with that are on today are in the world of professional services, in technology, and the way buyers in professional services and technology very much are looking in terms of interacting and dealing with those trusts. It's the who can help them solve, who can help them achieve their objectives. So they're really seeking out to tap into experts, people that they know, that they trust, that can help them deliver to what they require. And so, if you can identify, knowing who are some of those, clients or potential partners, and if you can able to tap into those individuals, it is so important. It can literally change the trajectory of a company, because often it just takes those one or two clients or that one or two strategic partners that can really allow you to scale, go to the next level, and it can make the whole difference. I also want to just kind of touch on quickly, Stu. So you talk about contact marketing. How is this different as opposed to, demand gen, lead generation, which are a lot of the things, particularly at this time of year, mid-year, people are revisiting their efforts, where they're at, what they need to do. How is contact marketing different from that?
Well, I would say that demand gen, I think of that as it's a marketing function. And probably more like a mass marketing function, whereas contact marketing, I'm putting together a new speech, so this will be my new keynote, and we're starting it with who are the 10 people in the world, 10 people, just 10 people who could, if you could get a meeting with them, that they would change your life. Think about that. What 10? Because that's all it takes. It might even take just one, but. Who are the 10 people that if you could get a meeting with them, it would change your life? And I guess some people might say, well, I don't know, Richard Branson might be kind of cool, but you also have to have a reason for connecting with them. It can't be just like, man, if he invited me to Necker Island, that would be really cool. That would change my life. I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm talking about like who do you, who are the moonshots? The people that if you could connect with them, and if you could not just connect with them, but you start to, you connect with them in a business way, in a business sense or business case way, that you're able to create, let's say, a sort of a quantum engagement together. The combination is much bigger than the sum of the parts. Who are these people? And I won't say, why aren't you in contact with them? I'm going to say, I think mostly we would be thinking we can't get in contact with them. They're too important. They're too well guarded. They won't find it interesting for me to connect with them. But I would say if you actually have good reasons to reach out to them and team up with them in some way, or just serve them as a vendor, man, you need to find a way to get a hold. First of all, you need to believe that it's true, that it's possible. And then you need to figure out ways to get a hold of them. And in the book, I mention that everyone should have a top 100 list. And you reminded me before we started that I actually talked about 3 different top 100 lists, but even if it's just one, I'm just saying 100. So in the book, and then if we're talking in person now, it's more like, who are the top 10? So that's not what demand gen is all about. It's my understanding. It's that it's not. These are large campaigns, and it's a big dredging operation. They want to figure out who fell into the net, as opposed to, if we could get a hold of Richard Branson. Hypothetically, I was trying to get a meeting an interview with Bjorn Ulvaeus from ABBA, and I don't think we're going to do the interview, but I wanted to try it. I'm not just, I admire him. I really think he is the entrepreneur behind ABBA, and ABBA is still. they were around in the 70s, and they're still this huge force. Yeah. So, and I think a lot of it is just who ABBA was, and the music, it's just kind of joyful music, but the entrepreneur behind all that was Bjorn, and so it would have been pretty cool. I've reached his publicist, we've had conversation, but I don't think he's going to do the interview still. And I don't know that would have changed my life if we did the interview, because I'm getting to interview a lot of really interesting people for books anyway, but it does change your life, and those are the kinds of outreaches and connections that They do. Well, I will say, if I had a conversation with Bjorn, I'd be going, "That was really cool, man. I got to tell people about this." Besides in the book, and so it's those kinds of things. And by the way, I know you just asked what's the difference between contact marketing and demand gen, but I think one of the great reasons to reach out to people is yes, business, sales, mentorship is a great one, and a partnership perhaps. But I think another one is just mischief. I love reaching out to people I should never be able to reach and reach them anyway. And I don't know, I have to have a good reason for doing it, but it's mischief, that's a good reason.
That's great. So bringing it back to the business context, because a lot of the folks listening here are consultants, they're accountants, CFO advisors, and so the whole premise of, I think, contact marketing is so relevant to them because it is often about having your list of your top 10, be it top 10 client prospect, top 10 people that you might want to potentially collaborate with, but it is about how to get that meeting with that person to be the prospect or the client. How do you go about getting getting that meeting? So I want to kind of maybe switch gears a little bit into what some of the work, some of the preparation that we need to be able to do, because you talk about in your book how it's about this smaller number of these. We're going to say, let's talk about in terms of 10. Those 10 prospects, 10 key potential strategic partners that we want to get that meeting with that individual. And you talk about the importance of doing a lot of research, a lot of preparation before you get even into the creativity. Can you talk through for the benefits of our folks here, like I said, many of which are like your accountants, lawyers, the tech founders who are looking to get in, who have their top 10 list, and they've identified, okay, here are 3 of my first top 10. What are some of the preparation that they have to do in order to prepare for a contact campaign? What's some of that research and prep that has to be done?
Yeah, well, with AI, there's no excuse for not knowing who these people are, what they're talking about, what they're interested in, what's been happening in their lives. If trigger events are important to you, then what kinds of events have they been experiencing recently? AI gives you the opportunity to get that information, and so in fact, Frank Bastone has a company called Agentic Brain, and his business has been just using, whether it's using AI or using private investigators our former, I should say, retired private investigators to come up with a dossier on these people. We're all on LinkedIn because a lot of this is being streamed on LinkedIn and YouTube. Yeah, but I think we've all gone through these experiences now where you just get the term that I keep hearing is pitch slapped, but people they ask to connect with you, and if you connect with them, they hit you with a pitch, which is stupid. Well, actually, even before they do that, it's just all automated crap now. So, and you can spot it. So, just a request to connect is so generic. It's so lazy that on the receiving end, you just go, "Who are these? Who is the? What are you doing? You're wasting my time. I don't know who you are. You've not even done the." You don't know anything about me. You've sent me something, and you probably sent thousands of other people the same thing. Hey, listen, I noticed we have a lot of connections in common, and I really wanted to get to know you a little better, to get to know what you do. How on earth can you come up with a lazier approach to someone on LinkedIn? You can go to their profile and know what they do. And the thing is, I'm pretty open about connecting with people on LinkedIn because I don't know who's bought the book, and whoever has bought the book and read the book, I'm here to serve. Right. And if they have questions, I'm happy to jump in and answer them. Or if they're just saying, I bought the book, I want to say thank you. That's a big thing. So I'm very open about connecting with people, but when you do that and then they come back and they say, hey, listen, I get these right now a lot from financial, they must think I've retired. I don't know why, but anyway, hey, this is what we do and how we do it. And there's paragraphs of it in this DM. I'm not going to read that. I don't know who you are. And by the way, it's probably the worst way to reach out as a financial advisor, because that's a very personal thing. And you're just a stranger. Nobody knows who you are when you do that. So I don't know. Maybe it works. Maybe it works on a thousandth of a percent of the people that you reach out to. But the rest of us are going, what's wrong with you? It wouldn't be, how hard would it be to go on my profile, or how hard would it be to find me because you read my book? If anybody reaches out and says, I read your book, I bought your book, man, I'm right on it with them to say, man, thank you. And what's your favorite thing? What are you doing to break through it? I mean, I would engage with them, but when someone has absolutely nothing there, there's no reason to engage. So I don't think I might have missed the point of your question.
Okay, what I'm getting at is I actually want to take it one step further.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
So because you mentioned the idea of doing a dossier on a person, which is something, because I follow your book quite closely, and I just mentioned to you, I just had a meeting with a very senior exec of a bank, and one of the things I did is in terms of preparing a dossier. I want you to take folks through, when you've got that CEO type person that you want to get the meeting. This is going beyond the LinkedIn connection. You want to get that meeting with that person. As you talk about in your book, you really have to have some in-depth understanding of that person from a business perspective, from a personal perspective. Can you talk us through some of the types of things they should be looking for, including in preparing that file about that dossier about that person, to help them arm them with the kinds of insights to determine how to then do that contact campaign? Can LinkedIn profile is one, website. What are some other things that they should be looking at that they maybe perhaps be using as prompts into AI to be able to create a meaningful dossier, as you call it, about that top 10 person who's that, let's say, that CEO of a company, or of a company that they're looking to get into. If you can kind of take us through.
Yeah. Sure. Well, I mean, so if you're going to someone's LinkedIn profile, LinkedIn profiles are pretty good source of information. You can see where people went to school. That's kind of the lowest common denominator. If you sent them a cup, let's say, from their school, they might have left the school, like as in my case, might have left the school a long time ago. So USA is not so relevant to me anymore, but you can at least find that out. But what I'm talking about is going much deeper than that. I want to know, what are they talking about? So you should at least go in and look at some of their posts. They reveal a lot in their posts. I just posted today about my workouts. I've been working out for the last 2.5 years to get into bodybuilder shape by age 70. That's next week. That's a lot of information. That would be a lot just to use to say, hey, Stu, man, I just heard about your workout, or I don't know, whatever it is. You'd speak relevantly. But then there are other. And AI, I've mentioned that again, AI and Frank's Agentic Brain, for example, site, that AI gives you the ability to gather a lot of this stuff, more than we would find on our own, I would think. It would certainly take a long time to do it. Yeah. But I guess it just really, what are they talking about? I guess not just what are they talking about, but what little thing can you notice? So there's a guy named Mikey Polly who really just blew me away. He was one of the people I heard from when the book first came out, and he was telling me what he was doing to use. I call this deep personalization as well. So instead of just filling in a name and goes out to 1 million people, I would call that broad or wide personalization, but deep personalization is doing these deep dives into profile scrapes, into who they are, and Mikey was telling me that he would look at the pictures of the people he's trying to reach, and he'd look at the backgrounds of their pictures. So my background is fake, but I don't know, if that was real, there might have been something back there. He was finding things like he told me about, in one case, one of the people he was trying to reach had a bulletin board, I should say, right behind him, on the wall behind him. And so he zoomed way in and found this logo of a brand of coffee, a very obscure brand of coffee. And so he went and bought a bag of that and sent it to the prospect. And like, the guy's going, how did you even know that I like this stuff? Well, that was actually on his wall. But it's that level of insight, so you can actually I think that makes a lot of sense to reach out in that way. And I mentioned just a moment ago that if you're reaching out to someone who's an author, well, geez, that's really easy they're easy to pick off. Hey, I read your book. I loved it. You are likely to get through to them. So just find something that means something to them. So it's not just their title and the company that they work at. It's and the description of the company and so on, unless something's happening in the news, or if they were they might have been in the news. If they were in the news and there was a quote, man, hey, congratulations, I saw that you were just in the Wall Street Journal. Now, when you said this, did you mean this or this? That's enough to open up a conversation.
Right. So we can be, so the importance of doing some in-depth research. And I think, again, if we're looking to try to get to some of those senior level folks, it's leveraging the likes of AI to really understand, a bit more about their profile in terms of what initiatives they're working on, potentially, I guess, understanding their activities they're doing in terms of professional associations, groups. Are they doing mentorship? Are they involved in community? So AI, you would say, would be a good tool to be able to do that in-depth, I'm going to call, I guess, scraping, for lack of a better word. To get those insights, to understand what they're doing from a business perspective in terms of key strategies, priorities, background, memberships and involvement, but then also trying to use that to maybe as part of that scraping to build out what are some of their personal interests as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so and then where do we go from there with this?
Well, that's when it gets fun, because then you got to turn that into something. So you could turn it into something pretty simple. I mean, there's a tactic that Jeremy Blubaugh came up with, and I know he adapted it from someone else's. I think it was Brian Margolis's mailings and so on. But basically, it's this: just that find out. What we just talked about it, find out something that they're really interested in. And he's doing it with, for example, he found out that one person that he was reaching out to is really interested in antique guitars. Okay, what do you do with that? Well, he went to eBay and found a book, an out of print book on antique guitars. It's kind of a cool gift. It's used. I think even used is even better. I don't know why. It just seems like it's out of print. It's like, this is even more special. So he bought it, wrapped it up, and sent it to him with a letter saying, "Hey, I was doing research because I wanted to reach out and get a meeting with you, but I discovered that you're really interested in guitars, antique guitars, and I found this book, and I just thought I got to send this to you, and I hope that perhaps this will earn me a few minutes of your time." And it works. It works really well, but you can see he's turned it into something. And so a lot of times, just turning a personal interest into a gift is a great approach to that. But now I'm going to show you something completely different, because I mentioned I'm a cartoonist. I'm one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists, but I'm also a direct marketer, and I use cartoons in direct marketing all the time. I love sending them physically, not as part of an email. Email's such a crowded channel. I don't like sending them that way. But so this is something I'm going to show you. It's called the Heinecke window. It's patent pending, so don't just hey, thanks, I'll see you later. I'm just going to take the idea, because it won't work out well. But so here it is. There's the window in a FedEx envelope. Now, one of the things that's really cool about this is that inside, of course, there's a cartoon. I feel like that's a magic trick, doing that. But so here you see the little guy, and the green screen thing is kind of knocking out part of it. But anyway, this little guy, he's making a big mess at the table, and his mom is yelling at him, and she's saying, "Roland, you're acting like someone who has nowhere near." Well, actually, let me put this down for a second. I'm going to say I'm reaching out to someone named Sarah Smith, who is a direct marketer, and I want to pitch the Heinecke window as a creative test. So that's the reason for this caption. So mom is saying, "Roland, you're acting like someone who has nowhere near the test experience Sarah Sample has." And so, the people in direct response, they treasure their test history, because it takes a long time to build it up, and that's what makes them good or great direct marketers. So that's a great that Sarah would get that, and she would hang that up in her office and get it framed. I mean, that's the kind of thing. It's a cool thing. I like to send things that people never throw away. Actually, if I'm sending something physical, I'm not always sending cartoons. I'm not always sending something physical. You can also do it just with very, very brief copy in an email. But as I said, email is getting much more crowded. It's just it's not. It's not the simplest way to get a hold of someone. Actually, I shouldn't even say that. Aaron Ross, you probably know of him. He's the author of Predictable Revenue. And so when I was interviewing him for the book, he said, well, here's what I like to do. I like to just send really short emails. So no more than a dozen words in the email, and which is really hard to write a message that way. It's cool because you got a it's very disciplined approach. But he said, I got a hold of Mark Benioff that way. So Mark is the founder of Salesforce. Really hard. Well, I would say generally a hard guy to get a hold of. But Aaron said, you know what I did? I figured out what his email address was, and I just said, Mark, we do this. Is that of interest? And he said, I got a response within 20 seconds. Wow, from Mark, that's incredible. In fact, the mischief is just too much to resist. So I tried it as well. And again, kept it under a dozen words. I got a response. It was kind of a smackdown. Doesn't matter. That's still a response. But I got through to him, and it took 20 seconds using email. You can use email. I think the timing of email. So never use long copy. I don't think it ever works in email. But also the timing of email can be important. So Mark Hunter had shared with me that his preference is to either send emails early, on the weekends, and send it either early Saturday. So if you're reaching out to a CEO on the weekends, they don't have secretarial screening or assistants screening their emails. So it's just direct, and they're checking in before they start their weekend, and you can reach them that way. Or Sunday evening, early evening, when they're back at their desk planning for the rest of the week, you can do that. So there are a lot of ways to do this. That's kind of an endless subject. Pardon me. There are all kinds of ways to turn that information that you've just gleaned from profile scrapes into something magical.
Yeah. And I fully agree that. So doing the research is highly valuable. Folks, one of the things I started to do, which I've gotten through your book, because a lot of your ideas in your book are very creative. However, for those of us that aren't creative, and one of the things that many senior folks are looking for is insights, insight that really help strategic imperatives. One of the things, an idea I took from your book was to generate an SME CEO report, which I've prepared specifically for B2B accounting and tech leaders, and I'm putting that out quarterly. I have been sending that out, and I found that has been a great way, because when you do the detailed research, and if the detailed research is really linked to that person, their strategic imperatives, the kinds of issues that are on their mind, and you can give them value. And this is not necessarily as short as this, about a 15-page document, but when you deliver that value, it will give you cut through to help you get cut through to get meetings. I've managed to get through with 3 CEO execs by virtue of doing that, getting meetings with these folks. So insight is a very great way to do so. Now, a couple, so that it's a great way to get cut through to get the meeting. I had a question here about getting past gatekeepers. What is your thought about getting past gatekeepers in terms of how to do so?
I love this subject.
I've had a couple of ideas that I tried, but what are some ways when you and I think this may take, I'm suspecting, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's getting away from email and trying other ways. What are some effective ways to get past the gatekeeper? You've done your research, and then you've got, you might have some sort of artifacts, like something that you've created, be it a piece of artwork, or the insights report, an insights report article that you want to send. What are some suggestions to get people to able to get past that, top efficient EA who is the key gatekeeper that's critical to any suggestions on how?
Yeah. I love this subject. I'm a big fan of executive assistants. Actually, we don't want to circumvent them at all. So first thing we need to do is reframe. And I refer to EAs in my book as both VPs of access and talent scouts. And here's the thing: if you're reaching out to, let's say, the CEO of a company, their assistant, you're reaching one of the sharpest people in the company, because by the way, they report to the CEO just like the rest of the C-suite does, directly to the CEO. This is a very sharp person. So and the other thing that we need to realize about their mission is, if we think of them as just gatekeepers, then I guess what that means really is they shut the gate on me. I don't like that. So it's really keeping us out is what that really is associated with. And they are gatekeepers, but here's the thing: they're also there to, and which is why I call them both of those things, VPs of access and talent scouts. They're also there to spot the things. You should write this down when you're listening. They're there to spot the things that their CEO might otherwise miss, because these are direct calls to the CEO. The assistant has fielded that call, and they are the only person. They may be the only person who's even heard of what this is about. So they're also on the look for things that their executives really need to know about. So they're listening. They're not just turning people. They're not turning it down. If they're turning it down, then you haven't convinced them. You got to convince them really quickly. So if you haven't done that, then that doesn't help. So in the book, I talk about, let's say, one of the things I talk about also is creating a VIP statement. And so mine is kind of tied up with it's tied together with my outreach to important contacts and or let's say and their assistants. They're actually I think they're part of the campaign, actually. So one of the things I love to do, I mentioned I'm one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists. I'm using cartoons because that's part of me. That's just the thing I do. I've got a great competency at it, and so I send cartoons, and one of the forms that takes is something I call a big board. I'm going to hold it up. I don't know how it'll show up, but there's a big board. So I'm holding it way back just so you can see it. Yeah. But that is that's an 18 by 24 inch board, personalized. So that cartoon. I sent one of these to Mark Cuban, so I'll personalize it with his name. So in the one I sent to Mark, this woman is telling her friend, Mark Cuban says you can tell a lot about a person just by looking at their Mavs tickets. I tend to agree. Well, he was the owner of the Mavs, so it made sense. He's like, yeah, that is kind of how I judge people. Or how I can come to know something about people. And so I send that. It has a message on the back explaining who I am, or let's say if I've created this campaign for clients, then who the sender is and why they're reaching out and what the next steps are. But there's this script because we're coming back to the AEs here. So that the script that we use that says either the rep is doing this, or if I'm sending it, then I'll say it. So let's say I'm saying it. I'm sending it. So I'll just say, hi, my name is Stu Heinecke. I'm one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists. And I'm sending a print of one of my cartoons, which is about your boss. That's not quite. I like under 12 words. I mean, Aaron really convinced me. Aaron Ross really convinced me. That's it. So, but that's a little more than 12 words. But my name, I'm one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists, and I'm sending a print of one of my cartoons, which is about your boss, is enough to have a lot of AEs saying, what, really? Okay, sure. Sounds great. That sounds really exciting. And I said, yeah, and so the script goes further and says, well, thank you so much. And look, I'm it's not quite on its way yet, but I wanted to confirm the address with you. And then I wanted to just give you my contact details. So if anything comes up, any thoughts, whatever, you can reach out to me. And I'll just, so if you wouldn't mind, may I send you an email just confirming what it is I'm doing, and how then of course then you can reach me. No, not at all. Here's my email address. Here's how you spell my name. So an email will go out right away. Thank you so much for your help on the phone. Just to confirm, I'm one of the Wall Street Journal, the whole thing. One of the cartoonists from the Wall Street Journal. I'm sending a print of one of my cartoons. It's about your boss. I will get back to you as soon as I have FedEx tracking information. And I might then also send a card, a little folded card, like a Hallmark card, but they're never Hallmarks. They're my cards. So another cartoon this time about the assistant, and a little handwritten note thanking them for their help on the phone, because it is appreciated. And then so then they get a cartoon, they can stick it up on their bulletin board or something. They get something out of it. So by the time the piece arrives, we've had several contact points. They're all positive. And the assistant really turns, by that time, okay, the FedEx has been delivered. They're sort of serving as the internal quarterback for the campaign. They make sure that their executive sees it. So in all of that, what I've done is I've involved the assistant. I'm not trying to circumvent the assistant at all. They're integral to my outreach and to my campaign. They're really important. You really want these people, you really want to have a good relationship with these people. So don't try to get around them. You impress them, yes, and give them a lot of information. A lot of ammo to go to their boss and go, well, in this case, they're holding a secret. They're waiting for the print to show up, because they're not going to say, well, hey, by the way, I heard from a cartoonist today from the Journal, and they're sending a print of a cartoon about you. They want it to be a surprise too. They're kind of in on it. That's the whole thing. You make them sort of a partner in this, and that's a much better way to approach this. Don't try to get around them. Yeah. Look for ways to involve them. The card that I send, the little thank you card, is a great way to thank them, and obviously to thank them, but involve them, and they love it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. A couple great points that you've raised is, working with them as opposed to trying to circumvent them. Yeah. The use of old school postal mail or sending things via courier, I think, is very effective, and something I've used myself with the likes of, like I said, this CEO report, sending the report,
I ask you something?
And with the handwritten note as to what in particular might be of relevance to them. And that's something I got from your first version of your book, that when you send a report, because insights is what I've used, because I am not a creative person. And that's something that I know where I can deliver value and will resonate. But the handwritten note and then sending it sending it via courier, I have found has been well.
That's what I want to ask you about. So, because if you send it by FedEx, it's nice. It used to be maybe seem more urgent, but sending it by courier, by hand, that's.
Courier, I think that's really interesting. I've used the range, Stu. I've used postal mail. I've used FedEx, but accompanying it with the handwritten note to say, here's a copy of my report, this insight. These particular pages are of relevance. I got that from your book. That I found have been very effective in terms of getting the cut through, getting the EA to get it through to that senior person, to ultimately getting the meeting. So I guess to kind of sum up a little bit to what we've talked about so far, it is about doing that in-depth research. And I do believe you have to do that depth of research, and then finding what's the link, what's the hook, and then what's going to be that means that you're going to do that outreach, which for some folks, it might be creatives. I do think for a lot of the people here on this call who are looking to tap into the likes of, C-level execs, delivering insights and value of issues and matters that are of importance to them, I think it's something that you want to do. Whether you want to do creatively with some of your creative ideas you have in your book, me, not so creative, so I put together a report with my team, and then looking how you can get that outreach, which you can do via email. But I do agree, often going old school, be it postal mail, courier, that tends to elevate its importance and getting the cut through. Are there any other types of contact campaigns you want to suggest before I would like us to kind of move on? Because I want to get your insights really around what's changed in terms of getting meetings from your perspective, and how we need to adapt around that.
Sure. Well, I think the one thing you mentioned a few times that you're not creative. I think you're much more creative than you know or think. But and so I don't want to give the impression that, for example, you have to be a cartoonist to do this. I'm glad you're saying you can do it with insight. You can do it with visual metaphors as well. And people have used food to do it. They've used all kinds of things. So I would say that hey, I guess I'm on to hawk my book. So go buy the book and read about it, because I gathered a whole lot of these in the book.
There's a whole chapter, folks, on
all kinds of stuff. It's not just a chapter; it's a whole section. It's like all kinds of tactics that people have used, and amazing. But I want to share. I got so many favorites, but I'm going to share one, because what I really want to do is impress upon everyone. You got to be. You got to approach this with. I mentioned mischief before, with a sense of mischief, I suppose. Certainly, not being afraid to take risks. So, just audacity, right? Audacity really counts for a lot here. So, I'm going to tell you a real quick story. There was a sales rep who was calling on. I can't say the name of the company or the CEO, but I'll just give a clue that if you saw Forrest Gump and you remember the reference to a certain fruit company, the sales rep was calling on this fruit company's engineering department. And does that make sense? I think it does. Anyway, so he's calling on the engineering department with a software solution, and they loved it. And they said, well, look, we don't control budget, so you're going to have to take this up with purchasing. So, oh man, he's going, fantastic. I've got a deal coming up here with this big company. And so he went to purchasing, and they wouldn't talk to him. They didn't return his calls, nothing. They just wouldn't respond to him. So he thought, well, fine. I'll go around you. I'll go straight to the CEO. One big problem. This CEO at the time was the most famous CEO in the world. He was like Elon Musk as a CEO. He's one of the most famous CEOs in the world. So it's not going to be easy, as he found out, because he sent letters and faxes. He left messages. I mean, he was doing everything he could think of, emails, whatever. Nothing was working. So one day, and this is where the story turns, one day, this plywood box shows up at the front counter. It's a plywood box with air holes drilled into it, and a handwritten note. Handwritten notes tend to favor pretty heavily in a lot of these campaigns, but a handwritten note to the CEO. And the note said, "Dear blank," I can't say his name, but I've been calling on your engineering department. They love my software solution. They told me to talk to purchasing, but they won't talk to me. So I've been trying everything I could think of to reach you, and nothing has been working. So this is my final attempt. And I think maybe that finality was helping. I don't know, but this is my final attempt. So if you would, open the box carefully, and inside the box is a pigeon. And on the pigeon's leg is a little capsule, and in the capsule, a little slip of paper. And if you'll take that little slip of paper and write the name of your favorite restaurant, a date and a time, and put it back in the capsule and release the pigeon, I'll meet you there. And so obviously I wouldn't be telling you this story if the pigeon didn't come back. So the pigeon came back, and there was the name of a restaurant, the date and the time, and on the slip of paper. They met, and the rep walked out of lunch with a $250,000 deal. Audacity. And I could tell you, I could share with you other stories about this, but I don't know if that's where you want to go. It's just that audacity really plays into this. People want, you know what they want? They want very genuine human-to-human contact. That's what they want. And as AI becomes more pervasive, as things become more automated and artificial, it's even more so that they want real human-to-human contact. They love we're audacious, and I don't know that AI ever will be, but because we're mischievous, and I don't know if AI will be able to duplicate that. Show some of that. Don't be afraid to show that. Have fun with it. Make it fun for the person on the other end, and you're much more likely to break through.
Awesome. Great. This has been fantastic, Stu. Two final questions. Is there one or two key insights in terms of what's changed about getting meetings that folks need to be mindful of? And then and then the subsequent question, how can folks best prepare and get started to move? But first question, if there's like one key thing that folks need to be mindful of in this now era that we're in about getting meetings, what's the one key change that they need to be, or that they really need to be mindful of?
Well, I would say it's one of those, the more things change, the more things stay the same kind of observations. But the reason why I wrote the update to the book came out in 2015. And since 2015, we've had COVID, we've had work from home, now there's RTO, which is return to the office. So we don't know where we're at. Who knows where people are, but so that's a complication. And then I would say, I don't know if it has hit its peak, but it feels like peak spam certainly has increased a lot. I don't know if anybody answers their phones anymore. It's more likely to be spam than anything else. So there are all those things, but the big factor was AI. I think AI is miraculous. So I'm in that camp. I think it's just absolutely amazing. It's amazing what it allows us to do as sellers, because we can see buyer intent where we couldn't see it before, and we could pick up trigger events where we couldn't see those, at least in real time. We can produce lists of that, the top 10 or top 100 lists that are just killer lists now, they're just infused with data and insight that we never would have had before. So that's all amazing. But I think the more AI becomes pervasive in our lives, the more things are become, as I said before, automated and artificial, the more people will clamor for things that are uniquely human. And that bodes really well, both for the book. Well, actually, that section in the book that has those campaign tactics, which I didn't change at all in the update, because they're more relevant today than they were before, because it's more now. And now it's also demonstrating your humanity. So I think that's one of the, that's probably the big thing. That's the big takeaway for me, is just that, look, all those changes have happened, and AI is making things interesting for sure, but it's miraculous. But it's also making it crowded. It's making more crowded channels more crowded, and so you got to do things to stand out, very human things, and you've got to be sort of humanizing yourself to people in order to connect with them. And when you do that, they really appreciate it. So that, I would say that's the big takeaway.
Okay, that's great.
Question, and remind me what that was.
And so, and the final question is really, for me, it's just any tips on how folks can get started if they want to be looking at contact campaigns, which I had a question in the audience. Someone was asking about large number potentially. This is really about working with small numbers and getting quite targeted.
We can work with, there are some of the steps, it's drawn from things that work. I used to create campaigns for all the big magazine publishers. So millions of pieces of mail would go out, same kind of stuff, but different formats. So, but
you step to get started for folks that want to get started.
Yeah, I want to tell them, because it's like, how do you get started, and how do you walk away from this hour, I guess, that we've been together with something actionable, something that you can go use right now? And I would say it's going back to Michael's question about what do we do to find out something about people, so that we know something, so we have some reason, some basis for reaching out. And so do that. And then I mentioned the WOW mailer, but just deep personalization. So when you find I particularly, I think a personal, some personal interest or observation, I think it's just so simple to go out and get a gift. And I think eBay is a great way to do this. You could go to Amazon, that's easy as well, but or Etsy. But I think what's really interesting is going to eBay and finding something used and like a book about it or something. I love that whole idea. Or one guy missed going to the Tour de France, and so the person I was talking to went and found 2 tickets to the Tour de France that year, and that he had missed out. So he sent the 2 tickets. What a cool thing to send. Yeah. Doesn't have to be expensive. Yeah. And wrap it in brown craft paper so you can tell, look, this is wrapped by a person, not by a fulfillment operation, So, it's got to be homespun and all, but just use those, use that research that you've just used and that you've produced, and come up with a gift that relates to something in that. Or you just, it could also be, hey, I saw that you wrote this book and I had a question. You could do that too, but I'm just focusing on one thing. I think a gift based on a profile scrape, some nugget of insight from a profile scrape, is a great way to get started. Yeah. So that makes sense. Now, I also have something else though that I should mention, which is I have a mastermind, and I hope you don't mind my telling about it.
Yeah.
But I have a mastermind. I'm really excited about it because the people that are in it right now they're really superstars. I mean, I won't use his name, but we just yesterday had one of the top sales book authors join the group. And it was like, this is like, wow, this is an all-star team. But that's where we're exploring. It's sort of the leading or bleeding edge of contact marketing. That's where we're exploring a lot of things. And I just showed you the Heinecke window piece. Here it is as a card. Whoops, as a card. So there's the window again, and then whoop, there it is, and it's a handwritten card. Oops. Well, okay, there it is. But that's all those are tools that are part of being a member of the mastermind. So if that's interesting to you, if you're looking for a campaign, it's that actually is part of the mastermind membership.
We'll put those details in the show notes on YouTube. We'll put the links to your website, details about the mastermind, so that folks can follow on. Stu, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been a really great conversation. Folks, do yourself a favor, get the book, How to Get a Meeting with Anyone, the updated edition. Stu, can you tell folks where they can find, where they can locate the book, how they can get in touch with you to get more of your brilliance about contact marketing and all the great ideas, because we really haven't touched, we only touched the surface of the many types of contact campaigns that you talked about. But yeah, how can folks get in touch with you and your brilliance?
Sure. You could find the book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. I mean, really, wherever books are sold other than the airport. I don't think it's there. But and then you can reach me you can either reach me on LinkedIn. Just mention that you heard me on the. Don't send me a note saying, "Hey, we have. It looks like we have some people in common," and I wanted to. Don't send a generic one. But if you mention that you heard me on Michael's podcast, great. I'm going to connect with you. The other thing is you can see the spelling of my name, Stu Heinecke, on the screen. And if you go to StuHeinecke.com, that's my author site, and there's a little pop-up that will give you an opportunity to join my email list and get the first chapter of the new edition of How to Get a Meeting with Anyone for free.
Awesome. All right, Stu, thank you again so much. I'm going to be putting all those details into the notes here, on LinkedIn when I repost it, as well as this will be replaying on YouTube. So thank you again. Really appreciate the time. So folks, I hope you enjoyed this session, whether you're watching it live on recording. So have yourselves a great rest of your day. Until next time, take care and bye for now.